everybody. Baron with OneChiropractic, back again with Dr. Richard Barwell, continuing our conversation. So we talked about the Cortex last time. We got into some awesome conversations about the brain and the different beta and the EEG and the different brain waves. And man, we're still chopping this brain up, and we're looking at it in different aspects. So today we're talking about the limbic system, right? And really how that functions and where the adjustment falls with that. So Doc, I'm going to hand it over to you, and let's get into the limbic system.
Okay, just something you said last time that I really wanted to go back on about having people starting in the middle of this rather than going, just remember, you can't get to the top of the ladder if you're missing bottom rungs. Right. And so you need to have the foundation. So please just start from the beginning, because this is a journey we're taking you on. And it's a journey of logic and science and emotions and philosophy. And it's just, you've got to follow it through in order to really have it fit together. I've been doing this for 20 years now, putting this together, and this is so great to be able to break it down into pieces. One of the things that people may be wanting to get information on what we're really talking about and visit the website, the best person to do this would be to contact Dee. That's DEDE at NeuroInfiniti.com. And when you put NeuroInfiniti, it's with an I on the end, not a Y. Because if you put a Y, you'll be going to a different company. So definitely that's the place to go. And she can send you information and stuff on this if you're interested in finding out more about what's going on here. Okay?
And you can always reach out to me, which is the email address that we're sending you these videos. I'm more than happy to get you information as well. I have access to Dee and Dr. Barwell. So either way, so whatever way is easiest for you, don't ever hesitate reaching out.
Super. So I'm going to hit the share, and we're going to get started on this. And as soon as I can pop that thing up there and get, there we go. Now, we've been talking about the cortex of the brain, where all the memories are stored, and that's what guides us in our responses. It makes us who we are with a personality. It makes us who we are subconsciously responding to our environment. If your cortex of the brain is all the memory stuff, and sensory information comes in, it gets sent up to the brain. The brain looks at the information and says, have we ever seen this before? And it goes to the memory banks, the cortex, to say, yeah, we remember what this tiger did to us last time. It scared the heck out of us. Get ready. It's going to scare us again. Or that dog bit us. We need to get ready for that. Or that guy has a look on his face that is threatening. And so we remember what that's like. And it sends the information in down as a motor response. But first it has to go down to the limbic system to say, what do we need to do? Because the limbic system is responsible for keeping us alive subconsciously. It runs the whole system subconsciously. We don't even have to think about stuff, about how to breathe or have the heart rate going, or what. It's all taken care of by the limbic system. But the limbic system depends on the information from the cortex. And I was just listening to a presentation a weekend ago, and they were doing some great discussions about limbic system responses and chiropractic, and completely missed the fact that the cortex drives the limbic system. So if you're only addressing one part, you got a problem. We need to expand this. So we need to take a look at this. What are some limbic system responses like? Well, initial adaptive response. And if you can see that red arrow on the left side there, it says like adrenaline and cortisol, glucose, energy, cognition, being able to think clearly, cardiovascular tone, cardiopulmonary tone, pain tolerance, blood clotting factor. You know this, that even if you think you're going into battle and it's not really going into it, you don't really get there, the blood has already put out platelets that are sticky in case you bleed. And it was just something that scared you. It wasn't an actual battle. You didn't. But now you've got these sticky platelets floating around, and guess what forms clots in the system? And it was all because you thought something. Okay? Muscle tone goes up, GABA production goes up. Look what goes down. Digestion decreases, sexuality. It's very hard to be sexy when the bear is chasing you down the road. You know, unless that's what the bear is interested in. Reproductive hormones, growth and healing, extremity temperature all drop. That's it. That's what's supposed to happen. Okay, and so, but it's not supposed to happen continually. It's supposed to only happen for a short burst, and then it's supposed to return to normal. As part of our problem is that we've got so much stuff going on, it never returns to normal, and we're staying in that adaptive stress state. Here's what happens. If that stays, we see immune responses go down. We wonder why we have the sickest community in the world in North America, because we've got prolonged stress. Drugs are not a reliever. Drugs cause more stress because they unbalance the system. They're creating more problems than they are helping. Now, that doesn't mean that they aren't there for crisis situations. If you're in dire straits and dying, and they can do a drug to get you to that crisis, it has a role. But to just sort of say, okay, I'm stuck with the rest of my life, not a good idea. Memory, learning goes down, sexuality goes down, pain tolerance goes down. Got that? Chronic pain pattern happens when people have a prolonged maladaptive stress response. We know why, because they start moving more and more into beta.
Right.
Skin conductance, dry skin. Look what goes up. Insulin resistance, fatigue, hypertension, respiratory problems, you name it. Bone decalcification, that's a stress response. People never attach that to bone decalcification. They check women all the time for this, but they don't realize that they're really looking at a stress response. Addiction, somatic syndromes, autoimmune disorders, which are, by the way, exponentially off the board.
Yep. Because
of prolonged maladaptive stress response. It all comes from brain function. Cardiovascular failure. And that it comes very close to my heart today because of a loss in a family member yesterday. So this is all things, by the way, he was an RCMP officer. Mm-hmm. And finally had to quit because he just couldn't handle what he was seeing any longer. He actually retired early because he just couldn't handle it. So cardiovascular failure, yeah, we know where it came from. Besides being a smoker, it was a natural. So how important is this? You think this would be an important chart to have on your wall as a chiropractor? Yeah, people need to understand that this is why they're sick. So let's take a look at this. Autonomic storm. So the limbic system runs the autonomic nervous system. And people, chiropractors especially, they don't want to have to think. They just want to push a button, get an automatic report, and hand it to the patient. They want it all cataloged. They want it, push button responses. And it's not the way it works. The autonomic storm is as individual to the individual as is the fingerprints. Mm-hmm. So we don't know how it's going to respond to the information it's getting from the cortex, which is as individual as the individuals as well, because that's who they are. And now it's affecting this. So that's why it's called practice, because we've got this huge, wide range of responses going on that we need to take a look at and say, is it within ideal responses? Does it recover from stress? How does it react to stress? How does the limbic system show up? And in order to understand this, you need to understand some of the various parts of the limbic system and how it plays a role. So the thalamus, aside from olfaction, that's the ability to smell, all sensory processing is received by a thalamic nucleus and then directed to the relevant cortical areas. The thalamus is a traffic cop. Okay, and it gets information coming in and it decides where it's going to go and how much is going to go and whether or not that's important to send on. It relays primary sensations by passing specific sensory information to the cortex. I don't know if you've heard of the reticular activating system, but that's a gateway. If we had an open system that every sensory receptor that was in the body functioning at 100% and sending the information up to the cortex, we'd burn out in a nanosecond. Mm-hmm. We can't handle it all. When I used to drive the race cars, I'd race for half an hour at full tilt boogie, and I'd get out of the car, I was exhausted. Yeah. Because my reticular activating system was wide open, because the sensation, my consciousness was saying, you're an idiot, you're going to die out here, I need all the information I can get. And so it sends all that information up to the cortex. Well, the reticular activating system acts as a gateway to slow down information when it's not really needed, to say, I can handle this. Guess what happens to people with post-traumatic stress disorder? They burn out because the information now, they're under such threat all the time. whether it's in a war situation or in a business situation or in a relationship situation. And the information is so important to them because they're threatened that literally too much is coming up and it literally starts to burn the brain out and they have a mental breakdown. That's what it is. So receives information from the cortex and then projects it back to the cortex to regulate activity. It said, okay, I got this, I'm going to do this. How's that? Yeah, that worked last time. So there's a constant dialogue that's happening in nanoseconds. The amygdala, responsible for the perception of emotions such as fear and anger and sadness, as well as controlling aggression. Actually, we need to look at the prefrontal cortex for its relationship to the amygdala with the aggression part. The amygdala helps to imprint memories of events through emotions so that the individual will be able to recognize similar events in the future. I said we are emotional creatures. All of the stuff that's stored in the cortex as a memory has an emotional attachment to it. That's
really interesting. I'm sorry, I don't mean to break your train of thought here, but and this just popped into my head, but that's why music and smell, right? I've noticed a couple times when you're talking about this that the brain automatically connects it to an emotion. And so when it stores it. And so that's why, when we smell a certain thing, it reminds us of Thanksgiving with our family, because that's whenever we had that particular smell. Or music. You listen to that song and it takes you right back to the back seat of the car at the romance spot, right? It's interesting to me that when you start understanding why the brain starts logging things the way that it does, how you can start using those same triggers to actually retrain and create better patterns. Things like, I'm a huge fan of doTERRA and a huge fan of oils, right? And diffusing things, because it makes a difference in how your brain responds to certain activities when you're in that influence.
Just so you know, we've done live testing with the doTERRA oils and during watching changes in brain frequency with it. Now, you got to be careful with this because individuals respond to different smells differently. So, there's two things that really stimulate the brain to build patterns. One's pain and the other's pleasure. So sadness is pain. Yeah. And pleasure is pleasure.
We'll leave it at that for this conversation.
Yeah. So that's the role of all of this stuff. And the olfactory area is so critically important that it has its own wiring. It's different completely than any other input into the brain. It goes directly to the olfactory area. And so because it's really important, and here's what you need to know about the olfactory area. It's one of the foundation areas for the foundation of stem cells for new neural growth. Oh. Happens there and happens particularly there in one other spot. Happens in other areas as well, but the two primary areas, and I'll get to the other one in a minute, is the olfactory area because it's important for survival.
Which is crazy, right? Because we put so much emphasis on sight and sound, but it's funny how it's actually smell that has a straight line.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep. Wired for a particular reason because they discovered it was really important for the location of food or finding a mate.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay, we use perfume these days. I wonder why. Yeah. Okay, the hippocampus, here's the other area. This is the other area that grows stem cells for new neural growth. I actually have videos of stem cells forming in the brain, in the hippocampus and the olfactory area, as stem cells, neural stem cells, knowing where they had to go in the brain when they grew up and migrating across the glial cells to get to the area that they know they have to be in. Because they're looking around, they say, nope, I don't belong in this area. I need to migrate through the brain to get to that area because that's where I need to be.
That's nuts.
What's going on in here in the vitalistic expression of life at this level is just mind-boggling. And we have a role to play in all of this. So the hippocampus plays an important role for the formation of new memories about experienced events and consolidation of information from short-term memories to be able to convert them to long-term memories, plus spatial navigation, like it's our built-in GPS. I remember driving across Canada. First year I drove across Canada from college. The next year I drove across and I remembered turns in the middle of a foggy area. I was going like, I remember last year I was here, I had to go right at this corner. I couldn't see anything else but this corner. But that was my built-in GPS, my hippocampus saying, this is where you have to go. We have so much ability up in here that we really think that we're the smart ones, you know, our conscious mind. It's a joke. The subconscious is going like, oh, yeah. And I have a basic rule, and this is my number one rule for all learning. And when you're talking to the brain, number one rule is you cannot fool the subconscious. You can fool the conscious mind, but you can't fool the subconscious. It says, nope, I'm not doing that. Okay. Hippocampus participates in the assessment of salient, that's important, or content, using past memories to filter new incoming stimulus to place those that are most important into long-term memory. Oh, how does it do this? It does it through repetition. The brain learns new patterns through repetition. Getting one adjustment may have a great effect, but if you really want to change that pattern, that hardwired pattern, it learns through repetition. Mm-hmm. So here's the question. When you give somebody an adjustment and you start to change their pattern, what do you do after that adjustment? Do you send them back out, or do you put them onto a training program to help them build new pathways through repetition in your office and change their responses at that highest level of the brain? Something to think about. Yep. You know, we're really in brain therapy. I hate the term therapy, but I can't find another word right now. But that's what we're in. That's our field.
Yep.
So it's important to understand that. This is getting down into the depth of this, but we just have ways we know ways that the brain works and how the information flows, that we can be even more specific in retraining the brain. The hypothalamus, everybody should know about the hypothalamus, responsible for certain metabolic processes and other activities of the autonomic nervous system. It synthesizes and secretes, releasing hormones that in turn stimulate or inhibit, got it? Stimulate or inhibit the secretion of pituitary hormones. That's the master hormone of the body. So all of a sudden in the limbic system, we're not just dealing with memories and patterns of responses, we're dealing with the neurochemical foundation of all the reactions in the body. And that is instantaneous. It controls body temperature, hunger, important aspects of parenting, attachment behaviors, thirst, fatigue, sleep, circadian rhythms. It controls everything that happens in the body. So that's where we want to go at this point. Oops, get away from there. Go back. It's not letting me go back.
Yeah, just hit the previous.
I want to stop. There we go.
That'll work as well.
So now what we've done is we've talked about how the memories are formed through your experiences. We've talked about the role of those memories on the effect of the rest of the body function. So it starts from the top down. Actually, it starts, ADIO, above, down, inside, out. It actually starts outside, in, down, up, and then, because it has to have the sensory input to be able to change the rest of it. Our effect is above, down, inside, out.
Yep, that's awesome. Great stuff, man. I just hope those of you watching this, you're starting to get it. You're starting to understand the bigness of what it is we're talking about, and you keep going through this journey. The best stuff is yet to come. I tell you, this all comes full circle as we get in and a little bit deeper into these different patterns and how we interrupt them and how we create a new response. So, man, we appreciate it, Dr. Barwell, as always. We love it. And then we'll see you tomorrow for our next session with Dr. Barwell. We hope you have an amazing day. God bless.